What is going on, guys? Carter here with Edge Mindset. Thank you so much for hanging out. Really appreciate all the support. Couldn't do it without you. Wouldn't want to anyways. If you have a second, please like, subscribe, follow, all that stuff. If you're coming across this video and you're not a usual person hanging out on my channel, please do so. Pop into the communities area and post some pictures and hang out with all of us knife weirdos. We're taking a look again at the Reate Terminator-TX228. This is going to be a tabletop review of sorts, a follow-up of me carrying and using this knife and my experience with it, what I've done with it, and if I would recommend buying this knife. So this is the third iteration of the quote-unquote Terminator series from Reate, starting with the T1000 that came out many years ago, caused a little bit of, some excitement in the industry as people saw this wild, crazy, over-the-top knife with the weird extra locking mechanism, which you may notice is missing on mine because I have removed it because I absolutely hate it. In fact, I would go as far to say that if it wasn't for that extra lock, I may, potentially try to collect the whole series, but because of that lock, I just can't quite do it. But we'll talk about that here in a minute. So what is this? What is this knife? Why would you care about this knife? Well, you probably shouldn't. No, I mean, it's a over-the-top exercise in machining and manufacturing and how far can we push things. It's that style of knife. Really thick blade stock, very, very heavy. Crazy intricate design on the handle. It is an overbuilt, no nonsense, heavy duty knife. It's of that category. So if you're not into that kind of thing, then yeah, you're not going to like it. Let's get a weight here. How do I? Oh, there we go. How do I clear that for some reason? 10.3 ounces. Insanely heavy. Insanely big. Let's do a comparison to like a paramilitary 2. Crazy for me, right? To do that comparison. Never done that before. I'm being sarcastic. I do it on every video. So there it is. Very large knife indeed. Here we have it next to a Choppa scapegoat because I have it handy. Way bigger than a scapegoat. And then, hey, let's keep up the random thing. Let's do a Primo from Kunwu right there. Love that knife, by the way. Love this knife. You can see, very, very large. I'm getting this crap out of here. I don't know. I was trying to jazz up the background a little bit, and it looks cluttered. It's giving me anxiety. I can't handle it. Let's see. What else do we have? Yeah, we'll compare it to my Chub. There we go. There it is compared to the Chub OTF from Choppa's Knives. And, let's do an Emerson knife, because I don't think I'm going to do a dedicated video on this knife, and so I'm just trying to show it off here or there. There it is compared to a Emerson Commander. This is a special edition collaboration, not your standard Emerson per se, but it is the same size. So if you're familiar with the Commander, then you are familiar with that knife. So M390 steel, no surprise there. This one has a DLC finish blade over the satin, which looks really, really good. Under my shooting lights, because it's a gloomy day, I'm not getting a lot of good natural light, so I have to turn up the stupid artificial ones, and it kind of makes things look bad, right? It draws out all the stuff you don't want it to, and it makes it look kind of nasty. I apologize for that, but it is what it is. We've got DLC coated handles here over stonewash. I really like the juxtaposition of the satin DLC with the stonewash DLC. You've got the Steam logo on here that somebody pointed out. Reate, and just really cool handle milling. And I mentioned this in the unboxing. In my opinion, this is the best looking of the T series, right? They're all over the top. They're all crazy. My opinion, this is the best looking. I like that it doesn't have a compound grind. I like the simplicity of this with the drop point, just a standard usable drop point. But then it has this really cool fuller with some extra embellishment of these holes and these notches. I really like this jimping up at the top here. It's functional and it looks really, really cool. And then I like this chain link theme going through the handle here with, I don't know, it just kind of works for me. It all ties together and it looks very, very cool. Lock bar insert, all your standard stuff. I'm going to talk about, okay, so after I get over this overview, then we're going to dive into, is this a good knife? We'll talk about that. after this. I'm almost done. Don't worry. Really strong detent on this. I kind of wish I would have, the last time I had this apart, I kind of wish I would have lightened this lock bar tension a little bit. But that's neither here nor there. Got the chain theme going on, the Backspacer here. This is one of those knives that seems complicated, right? And it kind of is. It kind of is. But it seems like, because I know that's somewhat off-putting to people, is they see this knife and they see all of this milling and all these parts, and they're just kind of like, too many screws, too many parts, too many this, too many that. It's actually not that many, right? The only thing complicated about this knife is this stupid, well, okay, I don't want to be biased. The only thing complicated about this knife is the extra locking mechanism. And for those that aren't familiar, I'm not going to put it back together for this video, so we got to use our imagination. It has these two thick pins that float on either side of here, 2 pins. And you can press those pins in, and then you can't unlock the knife, right? Because they are physically blocking the blade in the closed position as well as the open position. And to undo those pins, you slide this guy up here. And there's a couple springs wanting to pull this back. You can see how this is spinning. That basically spins those pins out of the way. Now, it's a very interesting mechanism. You know, it has channels on either side in the titanium that slide up and down, and it spins these cams, and those cams interact with the big pins. Like, it's very cool how they got that to work. But for me, it was absolutely annoying because it's very easy to pop these in. They stick out far. If you set the knife down, it will pop in one of the pins, and you can do either one, and then your knife is locked. I carried it around the house the first day I got it, and I was constantly accidentally locking this, whether it was being in my pocket, it would be locked, or if I was just playing with the knife, I would accidentally hit the pins, and it would lock, and it was driving me nuts. And so what I did is took it apart. I took out the pins, which isn't that hard to do. And now the mechanism is still intact. The pins just aren't there. And you have a nice hole going through in both the opened and closed position. But that's the only really thing that's actually complicated about this. Everything else, for the most part, is just an illusion. You really just have these 3 body screws. And then you have this screw holding this plate on here, which you don't even need to mess with this for a normal takedown. So it's less body screws than a Strider SMF. You've got the pivot and you got 3 body screws right here. And then aside from this mechanism, it comes apart like any other knife. You just have the Backspacer here. This comes off. You've got bearings inside, just like a normal knife. It's really not that complicated aside from this extra mechanism here, which I think is cool. I think it's cool to give something the illusion of it being this over-the-top multi-piece type thing going on. I had multiple people on my video talking about so many screws, you know, it doesn't. It has 2 clip screws, like very standard. In terms of the overall construction, aside from this, it is very, very standard and not that complicated. So now that we got that out of the way, it's a heavy duty, overbuilt monster of a knife. And it's one of those knives when I feature on this channel, I just can't win. You know, I get people saying, I get it from both ends, no pun intended. So I post a knife like this. I get a bunch of people talking smack on me because they're like, that's just a showpiece. You're never going to carry it. You're never going to use it. So what do? I carry it and I use it and I show that. And then I get equal flack of people saying, I don't see how anybody could ever carry something that heavy and use something that heavy and bulky. And I'm like, what do you want? What do you guys want? Do you want me to carry and use things like this, or do you not want me to? It seems like no matter what I do, it's the wrong decision, and everybody hates it. I know, it doesn't matter. I do what I do. I like it. It is carryable. I carried it to work. Is it heavy? Yes. Is it bulky? Yeah. Yeah, it is. There's no surprises. It's what you would expect it to be. I'm not going to get on here and say it melts away in your pocket and you don't even notice it. You do. But at the same time, it wasn't like super cumbersome. It wasn't like I had a 10-pound weight around my neck. Like, I put it in my pocket. It took up more space than this, right? As you can see. No surprises. It is thicker and it is heavier. But it's also really, really cool. It wasn't that bad. Like, I had it in dress pants. I was in the office and I put it in my, not dress pants like going to a wedding dress pants, but like office casual, business casual, cotton, whatever you call them, cotton, stupid work pants that you wear. And it wasn't an issue. It wasn't on my mind the whole time. It wasn't like I was banging it into things or my pants were falling down. When I'd put my hand down by my side, I would feel the bulge, which I'd feel the bulge, which no, I am not used to that. I'm not used to that. But aside from that, it wasn't that bad. Using it, gross. I just spit on that blade. I got overly excited. I'm going to have to edit that out. I probably won't. You're going to see that. How gross is that? Now, if I go to sell this knife, I've got to deduct even more money because it's been spat upon. It used exactly like you would expect it to, right? Very utilitarian blade shape. Very usable. Out of all of the T1000s, this, in my opinion, is one of the more usable ones. The T6000 is pretty usable too, in my opinion. But very thick, it's thick behind the edge. It's sharp, right? It is sharp. It will cut, but it is not, it's not a super big slicer. It's very thick behind the edge. It's going to take a lot of abuse. But it is not magical. Obviously, if you really go hog wild on this thing, you can chip it, you can break it, and you will have to sharpen it. It will be difficult. I haven't sharpened it yet. It will be difficult. Blade this thick, I don't really have a sharpening system that does well with blades this thick. It's always kind of tricky. I am a little nervous about that. Now, if you have a nicer system, I don't know, Wicked Edge or something like that, it's probably not an issue. I've never been a big sharpening guy, so I haven't invested too much into that world. So I have like a KME and the Work Sharp stone system, and depending on the knife, one works better than the other sometimes, but I am a little nervous about sharpening it. I'm not sure if I'll need to. I got so many knives to carry. I doubt I'll put enough use on this that it actually needs to be sharpened, but very well constructed, like Reate, no detent lash, it's perfectly centered. And even if you take this thing apart, slap it back together in a hurry, it's going to be centered and it's going to have rock solid action. And the action on this thing is amazing. The thunk that you feel when this thing flies open, shakes your hand with this big, thick, heavy blade. The flipper tab is positioned very, very well. You get so much leverage and you're running on those bearings. It just flies open. The lockup is these stop pins going through the blade here. You can see how big those are. Absolutely massive on those stop pins there. Interacting with contoured sections. You can see the wear. See how even that is? I mean, it's a little bit fatter on that side there, but it's contacting both sides very strongly. And then in the closed position, it's just contacting that point right there, which doesn't matter as much, right? Because this isn't lockup. This is just stopping the blade there. So very, very strong blade indeed. Looks like I have some wear on the DLC, or is that just shiny? I think that's just shiny light coming through. I thought maybe I wore off some of the DLC right there, but that's just the light hitting that corner right there. So very, very cool. This comes in 3 different flavors, which is also kind of neat. They've got the full DLC like this. They've got satin blade with a light blast handle and satin blade with a dark blast handle. I wish they would have came out with a tuxedo version, DLC blade, dark blast handle. Beautiful. And once again, I wish they didn't have this extra lock mechanism. I got it was mixed, right? The response to me removing this lock was pretty mixed. Some people love the idea and they're like, yes, I want to do the same thing. That is the only reason why I'm not carrying this knife is because of that lock. It always accidentally locks on me and I hate having to do this all the time. Other people roasted me basically saying, that's the point of the knife. That's what makes this knife special. If you don't like that extra lock, get something else. To that, I would say, I get that sentiment a little bit, but this knife has so many other things to offer in terms of design. And by the way, it is extremely comfortable. It's one of the more comfortable knives that I have ever handled. Like, it is really, the ergonomics are great. I think there's a misconception that a bigger, thick handle is less comfortable. For me, it's the opposite. The most comfortable knives are the ones with the biggest, thickest, roundest handles. Now, they don't carry as well, right? Because they're really bulky and they tend to be heavier. But in terms of comfort, this thing is amazing. There is no hot spots whatsoever. This pocket clip, nothing. Now, your hands may vary. Maybe this clip will hit something on you that it doesn't hit on me. You can see it fits right in here. Nice and curved, very, very comfortable. I could actually use this thing for some hard tasks all day long. I like it. I really like it. I hate the lock. Oh yeah, anyways, back to what I was saying. So yeah, kind of 50-50. Some people were giving me a lot of flack for removing it. They're like, that's the whole point of it. If you don't like it, get a different knife. And I don't agree with that. Being able to, this isn't even modifying, right? I just removed a piece. I can put it right back in. Being able to do that to kind of fit your needs, I think, is part of the hobby, and it's what makes it fun. If you want to pimp your own knife, if you want to mod your own knife, absolutely do it. Make it your own. Fix the things you don't like. The other reason why I wanted to do this is if there are people out there that like this knife and this lock thing is holding them back, I wanted to let them know that there's another option. You can remove that. Now, maybe you still don't want to, that's fine. But it is an option. You can remove that extra lock and just use this as a normal knife as God intended. All right, guys. Yeah, that's it. Update on the TX228. I still really like this. It is in my carry rotation right now. It's on my carry shelf, right? So I pull a bunch of knives and I kind of put them in my closet all laid out, and that's the knives that I kind of grab during that point in time. And then when I get sick of them, I put those into my cases and maybe grab a new batch, or maybe some stay there forever. Just depends. All right, guys. Talk to you later. Thanks for hanging out. Have a good weekend or a good week, depending on when this goes up. Talk to you later.